Welcome to the Untold Chronicles on YouTube. Today we're doing a deep dive into one of the most baffling mysteries in English history, the princes in the tower. Get ready for twists and turns and a lot more royal drama to make even Shakespeare blush. So don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with your fellow history buffs. All right, let's get started.
It's a story that has captivated historians and armchair detectives for centuries. We're talking about a real-life historical thriller, complete with vanished princes, a power-hungry uncle, and a kingdom on the brink of chaos.
Okay, so picture this. It's the late 1400s. England is engulfed in the Wars of the Roses. The House of York and the House of Lancaster are locked in a brutal battle for the throne.
Yeah, imagine like Game of Thrones level intrigue and bloodshed, but with even more extravagant hats.
Right. Now, smack dab in the middle of this chaos,
Right.
King Edward IV, a Yorkist, dies unexpectedly, leaving his 12-year-old son, Edward V, as the heir to the throne.
A 12-year-old king in a time of political turmoil. Talk about a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. Enter Richard, Duke of Gloucester, Edward IV's brother. He steps in as Lord Protector, supposedly to guide the young king. But even back then, folks were raising an eyebrow at his motives.
Yeah, imagine you're a powerful nobleman in 1483. Wouldn't this be the perfect opportunity to snatch the crown for yourself?
Totally. And Richard wasted no time making some bold moves. First, he arrests key members of the Woodville family. That's Edward V's wife's family. Powerful, wealthy, and not exactly Richard's biggest fans, his excuse. Oh, just protecting young Edward V from their influence.
Classic power play. But here's where it gets even more suspicious. Both young princes, Edward V and his younger brother Richard, are sent to the Tower of London for safekeeping. Now, you need to remember that the Tower wasn't just a fancy tourist attraction back then. It was a notorious prison. And being sent there was rarely a good sign.
Especially when you're a 12-year-old who just lost his dad and whose uncle is eyeing the throne like a hawk eyes a field mouse.
Precisely. It's like Richard's isolating them, consolidating his power, and setting the stage for his next move, which is even bolder.
Oh yeah, Richard wasn't messing around. He suddenly declares Edward I's marriage invalid. Wait, what?
Yeah, and this is where the act of titulus regis comes into play. It was basically a legal maneuver cooked up by Richard's supporters to declare the princes illegitimate. They claimed Edward I's previous betrothal made his marriage to Elizabeth Woodville, the prince's mother, null and void.
So just like that, with the stroke of a quill, Richard wipes out the prince's claim to the throne. Talk about a power move.
And what does this mean for Richard? He's no longer just the Lord Protector. He's King Richard III.
Meanwhile, the two young princes are still tucked away in the tower, and the rumors about their fate are starting to swirl.
And then, silence. The last confirmed sighting of the princes is in the late summer of 1483, and after that, they vanish without a trace.
Poof, gone. No ransom demands, no farewell letters, just two young princes who disappear from history. So what happened to them?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Exactly. And that lack of concrete evidence has fueled centuries of speculation, conspiracy theories, and historical debates. Now, to understand this mystery, we need to look at the key players involved, starting with the most obvious suspect.
Okay, so let's delve into the main players in this historical whodunit, starting with the one who benefits the most from the prince's disappearance, Richard III himself.
He's at the top of the suspect list. He had the motive eliminating rivals to the throne and the opportunity given his control over the tower.
But hold on. Some historians argue that killing the princes would have backfired on Richard. It would have made him look like a ruthless tyrant, which might have sparked even more rebellions against him.
That's right. Some suggest it might have been more politically savvy for him to keep them alive, albeit imprisoned to avoid inflaming public opinion.
So was Richard III a cold-blooded killer who eliminated his nephews to secure his grip on power? Or was he a shrewd politician who got framed for a crime he didn't commit?
It's a question that's haunted historians for generations. But Richard III isn't the only suspect in this case. We've got a whole cast of characters with their own motives and secrets.
Okay, so if we're stepping away from Richard III for a moment,
Yeah.
who else could have orchestrated the disappearance of the princes?
Well, one intriguing suspect is the Duke of Buckingham. Richard's close ally, at least for a while.
Yeah.
They had a major falling out. And some theories suggest Buckingham might have acted on his own, either trying to curry favor with Richard or maybe even plotting to grab power for himself.
Ooh, a best friend turned bitter enemy.
Yeah.
It's always a good recipe for drama,
Yeah.
especially when a throne is up for grabs. So is it possible that Buckingham arranged the prince's disappearance to appease Richard or even undermine him?
It's certainly a possibility worth considering. But we can't forget another major player in this historical drama, Henry Tudor, who later became King Henry II after defeating Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth.
Right. Henry Tudor had every reason to want the princes out of the picture. Their disappearance paved the way for him to marry Elizabeth of York, the prince's sister, which helped legitimize his claim to the throne.
Exactly. Having the princes around would have presented a constant challenge to Henry's authority. Their claim to the throne was arguably stronger than his, so their removal would have eliminated a significant threat.
Wow. So we're talking about potential motives from Richard III, the Duke of Buckingham, a Andy Henry Tudor. This case is getting more complicated by the minute.
And remember, this was a time of immense political upheaval. There could have been other factions at play, individuals with grudges against the Woodvilles, or those who saw an opportunity to seize power amidst the chaos.
It's like trying to solve a 500-year-old jigsaw puzzle, where half the pieces are missing, right, and the picture keeps changing depending on who you ask. But let's talk about evidence. Is there anything concrete that sheds light on what actually happened to the princes?
Well, in 1674, two small skeletons were discovered buried beneath a staircase in the Tower of London. This discovery sent shockwaves through England, as many believed these were the remains of the missing princes.
Okay, but that was centuries after the princes vanished. How could anyone be sure those skeletons were actually theirs?
That's the crux of the debate. While the location and age of the skeletons seemed to align with the missing princes, conclusive identification was impossible at the time. The remains were reburied in Westminster Abbey with great ceremony, but even today, there's been no definitive DNA testing to confirm their identities.
So we're still left with a giant question mark hanging over those skeletons. It's possible they belong to the princes, but we can't rule out other possibilities. It was a royal residence for centuries, and child mortality rates were tragically high back then.
Precisely. And that's why this case continues to fascinate us. We have tantalizing clues, a cast of suspicious characters, but no definitive answers. It's a historical cold case that keeps demanding our attention.
It's almost like the lack of clear answers fuels our desire to solve this mystery. We want to bring closure to this tragic story, to know what truly happened to those two young boys.
And it's not just about the princes themselves. This case speaks to larger questions about how we interpret history, how we grapple with ambiguity, and how we try to piece together the truth from fragmented evidence.
Speaking of interpretations, let's talk about how different narratives have shaped our understanding of this case. I'm thinking specifically about Shakespeare's portrayal of Richard III in his famous play.
Yes, Shakespeare. His play, Richard III, has undoubtedly had a profound impact on how people perceive this historical period, particularly Richard III himself. Shakespeare paints him as a Machiavellian villain, a power-hungry tyrant who stops at nothing to seize the throne.
And that image of Richard III, the hunchbacked, scheming usurper, has become so deeply ingrained in popular culture. But is it an accurate reflection of the real Richard III?
That's the debate, isn't it? We have to remember that Shakespeare was writing during the Tudor era, and the Tudors, as you know, benefited greatly from Richard III's downfall. Their version of history, which painted Richard as the villain, became the dominant narrative.
So it's possible that Tudor propaganda played a role in shaping Shakespeare's portrayal of Richard III, and that in turn has influenced how we view him even today.
It's a point worth considering. In recent decades, historians have started to re-examine Richard III's reign, looking beyond the Tudor-influenced accounts. They're exploring his administrative reforms, his legal expertise, and his attempts to restore order after years of war.
So maybe Richard III wasn't the monster Shakespeare made him out to be. Perhaps he was a more complex figure, a ruler with both positive and negative qualities.
Exactly. It's a reminder that history is rarely black and white. It's full of nuances, conflicting perspectives, and individuals who defy easy categorization.
Which brings us back to the missing princes. If we're questioning the traditional narrative about Richard III, does that mean we need to reevaluate the other suspects as well?
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we need to approach historical events with a critical eye, considering multiple perspectives and challenging established narratives.
Okay, so we've explored the main suspects, the flimsy evidence, and the influence of Shakespeare's portrayal of Richard III. But I have to admit, there's a part of me that's still holding out for a more hopeful ending to this story.
I understand that sentiment. It's tempting to cling to the idea that maybe, just maybe, the princes weren't murdered after all.
Right. What about those theories that suggest they were secretly smuggled out of the tower and lived out their lives in anonymity, perhaps even abroad? It's like a real-life, the man who would be king scenario.
It's a captivating notion, and it speaks to our desire for a less tragic outcome. However, these theories tend to be based more on speculation than solid evidence. There's no reliable documentation or eyewitness accounts to support the idea that the princes survived.
Yeah, it would have been incredible.
Exactly. But while the possibility of the prince's survival might be remote, it's a testament to the enduring power of this mystery. It continues to spark our imaginations, prompting us to consider alternative outcomes and challenge the accepted narratives.
It's almost like we want to rewrite history, give it a happier ending, even if the evidence doesn't support it. But at the end of the day, we have to grapple with the reality that we may never know for sure what happened to the princes in the tower.
And that's what makes this case so compelling. It's a historical puzzle with missing pieces. A story that continues to unfold even as centuries pass.
But it's not just about solving a historical whodunit, right? There's a bigger picture here.
Absolutely. This case forces us to confront the darker side of human nature, the allure of power, and the devastating consequences of ambition and greed.
It's a reminder that even in positions of authority, individuals are capable of great cruelty, and that the pursuit of power can corrupt even the most well-intentioned.
And it highlights the importance of critical thinking, questioning established narratives, and seeking evidence to support our understanding of the past.
So while we may never know for certain what happened to the princes in the tower, the process of investigating this mystery, grappling with its complexities, and challenging the accepted versions of history is valuable in itself.
Precisely. It's a journey of discovery, a quest for understanding, and a reminder that history is not a static collection of facts, but a dynamic and evolving narrative shaped by interpretation and debate.
Well said. And it's that spirit of inquiry, that thirst for knowledge and understanding that drives us here at the Untold Chronicles.
We're passionate about exploring the hidden corners of history, unraveling mysteries, and bringing these stories to life for our viewers.
Speaking of viewers, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Do you believe Richard III was responsible for the prince's disappearance? Or do you suspect another player was involved?
Let us know your theories in the comments below, and be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your fellow history enthusiasts.
And we're always eager to hear your perspectives and engage in these thought-provoking discussions with our amazing community.
Yeah, it's through these conversations that we can continue to explore the complexities of history and challenge our own assumptions about the past.
But for now, we'll leave you with this final thought.
The case of the princes in the tower serves as a potent reminder that history is not merely a collection of dusty dates and names. It's a tapestry woven with human lives, choices, and consequences that continue to resonate with us centuries later.
And sometimes those choices lead to enduring mysteries that haunt us, prompting us to seek answers, question motives, and grapple with the complexities of human nature.
Yeah, it's through this process of exploration and inquiry that we can gain a deeper understanding of the past and its impact on the world we live in today.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking the untold stories that lie hidden beneath the surface of history.
And if you're as fascinated by historical mysteries as we are, be sure to subscribe to the Untold Chronicles for more deep dives into the enigmatic events that have shaped our world.
Until next time, keep those history books open and those minds curious.